procurement officers or lawyers or other stuff, yes, because they just make a big science with big contracts. No, they really have to trust you. They have to see the location. It's very important to them.
Yeah. So then we can move to the most important trends that you will see in the city. That is the end of price-based sourcing. So what is one of the major reasons that outsourcing started is get your mess for less. So the internal IT department was not delivering up to promises. So what they say, well, if we outsource it to a specialist IT company, then things should get better. And sometimes it did, and sometimes you get it cheaper. But the next step is, okay, IT is so important for a company. If we keep only focusing on price, then we are going to lose. So a lot of deals were previously based just on price. You ask 3 suppliers, what is your lowest price, and just choose the one with the lowest price. That's going to end, because that's not a sustainable business model if you really want to partner with an IT supplier, and if you want that IT is driving your business instead of just delivering low-cost activities. How other industries also relate to the supplier and buyer relationship, for example in the car industry. So what was going on in the previous year was a lot that buyers, they tried to squeeze every penny out of the contract with their suppliers. So if you could deliver for $1 less, then your customer would switch. And what also was really important, that if you have a contract of 100 million in the first year, they say, well, in the second year, you have to deliver those same kind of activities for 90 million per year. And in the third year for 80 million
It's almost putting a gun in someone's head. So it's not called partnership, it's called partnership. It's shoving down the shit down the supply chain. That's relative, it's easy, because if you have to lower your costs, you just go to your supplier and say, well, you can deliver to me tomorrow, but it has to be cheaper. That's the one message. You don't trust that, it's not your friend anymore. So we have to go to another model, and especially in the car industry. You can't say the American car industry, this is the American car industry, really. You can't say that Ford or General Motors are selling a lot of cars worldwide. Who is the biggest winner in the car industry worldwide?
Toyota.
Toyota. Yeah, Toyota is very successful. Well, they don't have a model like that.
Yeah, so it's really important that, for example, Toyota has one central question that it asks itself, because it's really dependent on its supplies. It's why will my supplies want to supply to me? What makes me interesting as a client? And it really is different from how the client companies in the Netherlands, for example, if they buy IT, they just want the IT for the lowest possible price. But that isn't going to work if IT is so important for your business. So client organizations do really have to ask themselves, what makes me interesting? For example, if you talk about one of your customer Sweats, what makes Sweats so different and so special that you like it to work for Sweats? About price, just that. So if you just ask your suppliers, the tires have to be decreased in the price by 10% each year, well, in a couple of years, the tire should be given for free. That's not a sustainable model. If you're looking for innovation, for example.
And everybody will lose. In an ecosystem where you squeeze out your supplier, and it would happen in American car industry. You know about Chapter 11, what it means? You're Chapter 11, you go almost for bankruptcy. You file for bankruptcy, you can still run your business, like the airline industry. Of all the suppliers, of all the 8 most important suppliers, 7 are filing for Chapter 11. 7. So they're not successful, but is the General Motors successful? No, they're not selling a lot of cars. So eventually, no one is successful if you look to the supply chain. And that's a big message. Normally, you would squeeze out your supplier and you would be successful on the short term, but not on the long term. Companies like Philips noticed they were squeezing out suppliers, very hard, the same way. They left the American way of management. But that was the example. They switched to the Japanese way of management.
Yeah. So we really say in the next industry, and we think that IT, if it
will be the next one,
in the current way, would be one of the next companies.
Ever heard of this guy? It's called the Ignacio Lopez syndrome. Ignacio Lopez was a guy, the procurement officer, and he switched to General Motors for Opel. Opel was the best brand in Germany with the ADAC, the German motor organization. They gave a label. Volkswagen. And what they did, they just were squeezing out suppliers. But then if the supplier delivers, for example, a very small part of the car, for example, one electronic chip. The chip is $2. let's say €2, and he squeezes out, and the chip has to cost less than €1. So suddenly, someone will deliver not very good chips, and the chips will be the malfunction, and they have to get a recall. So all the cars have to come back to the shops. That's very expensive. So what happened to the brands where Ignacio Lopez worked, he was extremely successful in the beginning. At the end, all the brands deteriorated.
Isn't the squeezing also generating something like survival of the fittest?
Survival of the fittest is not about one company, it's about the ecosystem. Because so many companies are outsourcing everything. Toyota is outsourcing about more than 80%. Every new Toyota that's being developed, 90% of the work is being also researched and developed by others. So in every industry, in the past, when Ford was starting his company, he would have his own sheep herders. And he was on rubber plantations. He would have them same because he didn't trust the supply wasn't right enough. But nowadays, nobody starts doing everything themselves. So you have a lot of companies within your ecosystem. So it's the company is not a company that survives; it's an ecosystem that survives. That's a real big difference. So if you make a profit, your customer makes a profit, and everybody makes a profit in the same supply chain.
So what we really takes suppliers into account when it delivers its strategy. So for example, if you're a new supplier to Toyota, the only thing they are focusing on is getting stability. So they want you to know Toyota as a company and what they want to achieve and why and how they are going to do that. And what they are focusing on in this is the quality issues. So they'll check, is the quality okay of all the small parts that you are going to deliver. And what as a supplier, what do you know now and what do you need to know if you want to be in a long-term relationship with us? So, and if you are a supplier for some years, then you become one of the stable suppliers, and then it's about how can you help us to improve our production. So it's a lot about continuous improvement. So what did you learn in the process of supplying to us, and what do you suggest we can improve? Do you see some kind of innovation? How can you help us with that? How should we not focus on the lowest price, but how can you help us to add value so we can ask a higher price for our cars?
Same with the Prius is so successful because of the suppliers. Because if you have to develop your own new battery technology or hybrid technologies, you're not able to do that. You have to connect to other vendors, people with extremely capabilities in research and development already. So this is what Toyota did. So they went to others. It's the same as a company with a problem goes to one of your companies and says, "Can you help me innovate this business process or this product?" So then you are really a stable supplier because they trust you, and you can give comments to them. You don't just look at specs and say we have to program them. No, you're influencing their business processes.
Yeah, so you can imagine that if you want to be a mature supplier, that's not possible if you switch suppliers each 2 years, because you will only have new suppliers that you have to teach a lot. You have to introduce them to the company each time. You have to explain your business processes again. You have to meet a lot of new people. So the Toyota way of thinking is we have to have a stable amount of suppliers who are going to help us. Sometimes if a supplier doesn't perform well, too bad, we kick him out. And but for the rest, staying with your suppliers is extremely important for them.
Long-term relationships.
Long-term relationships, and that sounds really obvious, of course. But if you look at the average IT suppliers, you see that 37% of the clients is a fan of the company.
Yeah,
so all other clients, well, they say, okay, the service is okay, and we get delivered what we asked for, or they complain. Those are the wet.
It's a very simple question. We ask everyone in the outsource market, all the clients, one simple question: would you recommend your service vendor to others, to your peers, to other business colleagues? And they should answer the question. It's right from the question, like the ultimate question is: would you advise, or would you consider advising this product to your friends and family? It's an extremely personal question, and well, you have to be a very good product. You have to trust the supplier to do this. So this is the way we measure